What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Gotians Games, and today we're gonna have a little bit of fun. I've been meaning to do this video for a while. I kept putting it off, and then I forgot to do it. People have asked me to do it, so we're gonna do this. What video we're gonna do today? Well, that's going to be a test on how smooth can we get a game like Sword Art Online Integral Factor to run on Bluestacks. So we're going to get it to run at 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, and 120 frames per second. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and let's get into this test. Alright guys, so for this, I'm actually going to remove my border. So that way you guys can see the frame rates. And let me get Bluestacks up here, because for some weird reason it cut it off. Alright, there we go. Okay, so right now I have it set at 30 frames per second. Alright, so you're going to be able to see it in the bottom corner right underneath me, right down here. Alright, so you're going to see it's capped at 30 frames per second. Now, I want to explain a little bit about Sword Art Online Integral Factor, how it runs natively. So natively on your mobile phone, if you're playing saoif on your mobile phone, the game natively runs at 30 frames per second. What does that mean natively? Natively means that regardless of what phone you have, the game's going to run or going to try to run at 30 frames per second as the most optimum setting for the game. Okay, so obviously this is something that we can only do on computers, so using Bluestacks, and probably Nox you could do it as well. Now preferably I don't like using Nox, that's just my own personal preference, but for some weird reason we are getting stuck here. First, I don't know why I've been having a lot of issues with the game from like 2 updates ago, or maybe 3 updates ago, from the last time that I played it, which was like 2 weeks ago. I don't know why it's been having issues. The game's been having issues. Let me know down in the comment section if you guys have these issues as well. So you can see we're going to be running the game at 30 frames per second. Now what are we going to do to test this? Well, we're going to go fight a boss. We're going to go fight Alaz, and the only reason why we're going to fight him is because with Alaz there's a lot of pixels on the screen, especially considering with the boss himself, with the floor, with the way that that he attacks, with everything that there is when it comes to Alaz. He's probably the best way to check out the different ways that the game will run. Now, here's another way to check it. Look how choppy it looks at 30 frames per second with all of the, with there's not that many people on here, but with the people on here, the game does not run that well at 30 frames per second on a computer. Specifically because it wants to run it faster. On a phone, this is no problem, but here we're running the screen at 1080p HD graphics, and the game looks jagged. It doesn't look smooth. It's just not having a good experience at all. In fact, it's dipping into like 14 frames per second. The game is still playable, but it has some issues. I don't even need to go fight the boss and we can see the issues. This is not going well for me because right here the game is like, it's crashing. So, and that's nothing to do with the frames. That's just how the game's been. The game's been crashing like crazy. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and change the settings. You can't see what I'm doing because for some reason it doesn't show you. But I go into the settings in Bluestacks, and we're going to go into the engine. Now, the way that I have this set up, okay, just so you guys are aware, I have VT enabled on my computer, which that's virtual technology. And the only reason why you would need to enable VT is to allocate more CPU cores to it, to Bluestacks, which I've done. So I have 4 CPU cores allocated to running Bluestacks. I also have my RAM cranked up to 4 gigs. So now I'm going to crank up the frame rate. We're going to go to 60 frames per second. Okay, so you're going to see how the game runs at 60 frames per second. Let's see if there's anything else for me to change. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and in order to make these changes, we're going to need to reset Bluestacks. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to reset. I'm going to close it out. I'm going to reopen Bluestacks. Yes, I would like to exit Bluestacks. And then we're going to reopen it and run the game at 60 frames per second. Hopefully it doesn't crash on us. Like I said, the crashing is nothing to do with the frame adjustments or anything like that. A lot of it has to do with just how the game's been reacting with the latest updates. It's just not been optimal. I don't know what they did during the updates. When floor 20 dropped, that's when it started having these issues. Okay, so now we're back open. We're gonna open up the game. As you can see, the frame rates are much higher now. 50, 58. It's gonna cap at 60. Okay, 60 is probably where most of you playing PC will have the better interactions, especially if you don't have like a really powerful computer or anything like that to kind of put the frame rates past where it actually wants to be. Again, the game runs natively 30 frames per second just because that's what phones like to deal with. But that's neither here nor there, because what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be running the game at 60 frames per second. The computer's going to like it a lot better. My screen's going to like it better, because my screen's not going to want to run it at 30 frames per second. It's going to want to run it at 60. Another thing to also keep in mind with the settings, when I go into the engine, you need to enable high frame rates in order to adjust the frame rates to however you want to adjust it. On top of that, if you go to, I think it's preferences, not preferences, where is it at? Game settings. In game settings, I have it set to QHD 2K, which is GPU comparable with GTX 1060 or higher. I have a GTX 1060 6 gig, and I have the graphics quality set to HD. Now, if we had changed it at all, then you would see a big difference. So now, the game's running a little bit smoother. You can see that clearly. All right, we're gonna make our way to Alaz. So right now, you can see the frame rates when we're in city is at 30 frames per second. Remember what I told you, the game runs natively at 30 frames per second. So it's going to want to get to that 30 frames per second as much as it possibly can, because that's how the game was built. Okay, yes, we can push past it. We can make it better, like we just did. We're not, we're trying to get it to 60 frames per second. But the thing is, when you set it to 30 frames per second, it's gonna dip lower than that. So setting it at 60 frames per second allows it to dip lower, but we still have better frame rates. So as you can see here, okay, the game's running smooth, with the exception of maybe like a hiccup or whatever. Oh man, I got the wrong weapons here, but that's all right. We'll go ahead and change that really quick while I continue talking to you guys. Come on, equipment set. Are you kidding me? I didn't save my. I didn't save my. That's my fault. Go figure, right? All right, I didn't save my rapier set. But while I talk, okay, so you see how it's 30 frames per second. Like I said, the game wants to stick around at 30 frames per second. It just wants to be there. That's not something that you can fix until we get it to the higher frame rate, which is 120 frames per second, which we're gonna do in a moment. Let me just go ahead and fix this nonsense because I forgot to do that. That was my bad. So yeah, all right, so we went ahead and fixed that. Now I'm not gonna fix my support skills or whatever. I'm just gonna leave it be, specifically because I want to test this out for you guys. All right, so as you can see, the game's running, it's running smooth. There's no hiccups, no nothing like that. There's a little bit of input lag, but it's not It's not that bad. It's doable. It's you know, the game runs smooth. All right, no problems, no issues. And remember what I said, the game wants to run at 30 frames per second. So as you can see here, while in combat with all the pixels and everything going, the game is at 30 frames per second. It does not want to be at 60 frames, it wants to be at 30. But because we have it at 60 and not 30, the game runs smoother. Now, if we did set it to 30 and we tried to fight this boss at 30 frames per second, then it would run it at a much worse rate. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna close it out. All right, I'm gonna force close it there. I'm gonna go ahead and set it now to 120 frames per second, and we're gonna have some fun to see what the differences are. So let me set that really quick. Come on, go to 120. Stop going to 121. You know what? Nope, can't type it in. Okay. There you go. All right. So I set it at 120. I'm going to reset Bluestacks. Yes, I'd like to exit Bluestacks. I'm going to restart it. And then we're going to go ahead and log back in middle of that fight. And you're going to see that it's going to be at 120 frames per second, but it's not going to stay there. Instead, what's going to happen is it's going to go to 60. Usually 60 frames per second. Now, can you open Bluestacks, please? I'd appreciate that. Yes. Open. There you go. All right, give it a second here while it opens up. But you're going to see in a moment that the game's not going to stay at 120 frames per second. Instead, it's going to try to dip to 60 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second, which is just fine. Let me go ahead and open this back up for you guys. There we go. So you can see right there, 120 frames per second. Now, it's going to fluctuate a lot. That's just how it's going to be. But we have it set at 120 frames per second. Again, once we're in combat, it's not going to stay at that way. But you're going to see how much smoother the game looks. It doesn't look as jagged. Everything about the game will look better. Alright, so we'll go ahead and log back in. It's going to take us straight to that Alaz fight. And what we're going to do then is we're going to, after you guys see it, we're going to then cut it. We're going to go back to 30 frames per second. So then you can get that kind of like hit on how much of a difference it makes. Alright, so ignore the fact that that goes down to like 15 frames per second. That's just when it's transitioning. That's nothing to do with the actual game, like how it looks and stuff like that. That's just the game engine just trying to load and stuff like that. So it's gonna lag it and cause little fluctuations like that. But all right, so back in here, so you can see right now how smooth this looks. It looks fantastic. You can see there on the bottom that the game wants to be at 60 frames or less. It does not want to be at the 120, and that is perfectly acceptable because look how fantastic the game runs. Look how smooth it is. It's a major difference from the previous settings. And again, I have no problems with that. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Everything is so super smooth, and yeah, like that's 120 frames per second, even though the game's not actually running that. Now, if I crank it up some more, it starts to have some problems. Like it doesn't want to run higher than that. It just says no, which again is fine. But let's go ahead. We're gonna exit this once more. We're gonna go back to 30 frames per second, and we're gonna end the video there. So let me go ahead and where is it? Engine. All right, go back down to 30. All right, and then we gotta reset this one last time. Reset. Not sponsored. Come on, close out. Come on, Bluestacks. All right, there you go. Don't be a pain for me. Load back up, please. Yeah, I know you're still closing. Stop it. All right, there you go. Okay, so let me get Bluestacks back up here for you guys. Okay, so now at 30 frames per second, we're going to log in, and you're gonna see just how rough it is compared to what you just saw at 120 frames per second. Now, again, like I said, if you guys are running this on PC, you can do this as well. It's not difficult at all. And it does improve the quality of the game. It improves the quality of every game, not just this game. Like, every single game can be improved that way. You know, so that way you can make, like, older games look and feel better. Like, the response time's a lot better. And again, it's also locked to your monitor as well. So I do want to mention that. So if you have like a 60 hertz monitor, you're not gonna like get tremendous frame rates with that or anything like that. Like my monitor is 144 hertz. So just, I guess, a little FYI for you on that one. But right here, the login screen looks fine, all that stuff. But it's not until we actually get to this part where you can actually see the differences with Pina. And then once we get into the fight with Alaz, you're going to see the difference there too. It's a big difference. Very, very big difference. You guys on stream have been seeing me play it at 120 frames per second. That's why, like, that's what prompted this video, is that you guys have asked me to do this video, and I just kept forgetting about it and then putting it off. Actually, I kept putting it off and then forgetting about it. And now I remembered. So, yay! Alright. So, you can see how choppy this is. It does not look good. On a phone, it looks fine, again, because it's a phone. On computer, not good at all. This is, like, barely playable because of how choppy it is. This is like how I used to play World of Warcraft back in the day. Back in like 2004 on my old PC. Again, you can play it, but it's just not a fun experience because of how choppy everything is. So yeah, that's basically it for you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and set it back to 120 because that's how I had it. Hope you guys like this video. It's a little bit different, but I just wanted to show you guys because, again, you guys have asked me for this video, and why not? So make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, all of that stuff. I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching today. I really do appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of your day. Good game, guys.